Do it. We're in. All right, cool. So here I am speaking with Marie Kinsella from NSTKD, 6-degree black belt in the ITA and in Taekwondo in general. How's tricks? How's life? Coping well?
Life is good. Yeah, I'm coping all right. Yeah, kind of getting used to the changes and not being able to do a whole lot. I go to work and come home.
Yeah, and I mean, so look, thank you so much for sitting down and having a chat with me and everybody else.
No problem.
It's really good. Like I said, it's nice to keep the community sort of together.
Yeah, so it's a great idea.
So let's get into it. Tell me a little bit how are you as a club going, and how are you as a person going training wise now with the new restrictions and stuff like that? How has that affected you, and how has that affected your sort of your life, I suppose? How are you coping with COVID-19?
I suppose life-wise, like I'm still working, so we're still kind of trying to manage caseloads, physio-wise, in the community and that's kind of changed, I suppose, a bit since COVID-19 has started, and it'll probably continue to change depending on the need that's out there with people. So from that way, with going to work kind of 5 days a week, I'm still doing that. From a Taekwondo point of view, when this started and we couldn't go to the club anymore, we started kind of recording some sessions. Ada was doing them and putting them up for the students. But then we thought Zoom would be good because it kind of missed the social side of the teaching and just being able to link in with everyone and be training at the same time rather than people doing it just to kind of a pre-recorded screen. Yeah. So we started doing that, and that seems to be working quite well.
It's something I've noticed a lot of instructors doing. They've kind of had to innovate quickly, right? Because, I mean, from talking to other people, they're all kind of a little bit, I won't say worried, but aware that the longer they lose contact with their students, the less likely they'll ever see these students again. Do you know what I mean?
But I suppose I miss them.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you're teaching for song, you kind of miss them, you miss that interaction. So and I'd say like ourselves, you kind of like structure, you'd be kind of craving a little bit of structure. So it's good to be able to be in a position to offer that to people.
I know, right? We're not totally snookered, right? Where we can't. Yeah. I mean, we're very lucky to live in this day and age where the internet connects everyone, and we can have this conversation, and we can do. I mean, I'm doing live classes as well on a Saturday morning, and streaming them, whatever. And I haven't. I mean, people keep every time I try to set up meetings, they're like, "Oh, have you got Zoom?" And it's like, "No, I don't." And I must get on that now because a few people keep asking me for this, so I might have to.
It is good, and as you can see, I'm kind of not very technologically literate, as you've seen at the start of this, and I can manage Zoom. It took a while, but I can do it. So
we have to have a go. I mean, but so I mean, it's cool to see. I mean, I've been following stuff, especially your home workouts and stuff that I saw you put up. I mean, and they're cool and they're really good resources for people as well. So I mean, have you got good response to that, or how do you find it working for you?
With the pre-recorded workouts, is it, or the Zoom?
With both, I suppose.
The pre-recorded workouts, there was a good response to that. People said they were good. Zoom, I think that you kind of get an instant feedback as to how many people are taking you up on it, and how they find the sessions and that. So for me, that one it's probably the better one, to do. Like we were asking
for a normal class schedule, or are you just sort of a kind of a aggregated version of
it? Slightly different. So what way we have it now is we have the kind of red and black belts doing 3 mornings a week. So they do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then we've broken it up. We've white belts, yellow tags, yellow belts, green tags, green belt, blue tags, and then blue belt, red tags. They'll all have a day. So we do kind of 6. So it'll be 9 classes a week.
And was that more than you'd usually do?
Yeah. Well, I suppose, is it more than we usually do? It probably is and it isn't, because the time-wise, because the Zoom, you've about 40 minutes. After that, then you'll be paying for it. So the classes are kept to around 35, 40 minutes, which is kind of enough anyway.
Yeah.
So I'd say when you add it all up, it's probably similar, maybe even a bit less than what we would have been doing during the week, because we've been doing quite a lot of classes between Bearfield and Ennis.
But it's more specific now, right?
To the how do you mean?
To the grade, right? So I don't know. I mean, how do you split your classes?
Well, the way we've devised these ones is we start off. They have to have warmed up before the class because we just wouldn't have time to do the full kind of routine. So they'll have the warm up done, and then we'll do kind of 6 hand combinations, 6 kicking combinations, and then physicals, kind of 6 different physical exercises, and a stretch, cool down at the end. So, and it takes around 40 minutes. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll definitely be stealing your 666 strategy.
We're kind of falling in line with the black belt grading,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
So just kind of trying to keep it that way. I suppose when we started doing the Zoom, it really was with the people who were intending to do their Dan gradings this year in mind. We just didn't want to have them left for however many months without some structure, and some feedback. And then once we did kind of a couple of classes with them, we thought actually this is something that we could really do with the rest of the club and all the grades, because it's not that hard.
Yeah.
So we said we'd put it out there for people.
That's cool. That's great. So I mean, like, let's just change tack. I mean, for people who don't know your history and your journey, let's kind of go there. I mean, how did you get involved in Taekwondo, and how did you stay the course?
Yeah. How did I get involved? Well, my dad, Mr. Kinsella, he would have started. I was looking at Mr. Burns' chat with you, and they probably started around the same time. I think this was February 1989. Then on my birthday, my 12th birthday, Dad brought me to the West County where Master Ford was doing a demonstration for Taekwondo. And then I joined up the following Tuesday, the 18th of April. And haven't looked back since, really. When I started, there was no other girls, there was no other kids, actually. I was there 12, and it was my dad, my uncle, and I think maybe 5 other men, and Master Ford, and that was it for I'd say a couple of years. So it was, loved it. It was hard.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because you don't see that now anymore, those sort of mixed kids adults classes. It's just not doable anymore, you know. I mean, in that sense, where you have such, I suppose when you were 12 it's a little bit different, right? But I mean, and so you were in there training all through, and so I mean, tell me more about then. I mean, so when did you, was there much of a competition circuit, or was it very much a martial art just for training and personal betterment? How did you fare on that front?
There would have been competitions, but they were like Wexford, Dublin, I think, really were the big ones. You're looking at 5 hours on a bus. Yeah, back then, getting to them. Southeastern Championships and that. But there wouldn't have been a lot during the year. Like, I would have competed all right, but there wouldn't have been many competitions. Like, it wouldn't have been great at that time. Yeah. Like, I suppose now with the way kids are and getting on the national team and stuff like that, that wasn't something that would have been there at my age back then.
And this was so we're sort of, are we still RITA or are we AITA at this stage? Or?
We're AITA. AITA.
So you're involved in there from that, because I remember when I started it was 93, 94, and it was all AITA by then.
AITA.
So I mean, so when did you go to first degree black belt then?
First degree black belt was 93, so I graded with Adrian Byrne as well. At that, there's a few of us. We graded, and Mr. Kinsella, we all graded at the same time.
And where was that?
That was in Dublin. That was probably one of the worst gradings. Not the worst gradings I ever did, but one of the ones I was most nervous for. So myself and Dad, we graded through all the colour belt gradings together. And when I get nervous, I'd usually be chatting. So I'd be like, supersonic talking to Dad, and he'd be telling me go away because he'd be nervous as well. And then the black belt grading, I was so bad I couldn't actually talk.
Oh, no way. So I mean, who was your examiner then all the way through colour belts? Was that through
Mr. Walsh?
Okay, right. So
and then
for first degree then it was.
For first degree it was General what's his name, Heel Cho.
So there's a lot. I'm seeing a pattern here. The more I talk to people from the sort of late 80s, 90s, early pedigree, it's all through kind of Heel Cho, and that's sort of that time. Exactly. And so, I mean, tell us about your black belt grading by comparison to what we do nowadays. Do you remember that day thoroughly? I mean,
I remember, I remember it exactly. Like, but I'd remember it was a long day. I suppose compared to now, where you get like exactly what you're going to be asked, hands and feet. The sequence the grading is going to run at, and that. Back then, you didn't know what you're going to be asked. Like, you just had to, as best you could, know everything. And you had to know the Korean terminology for everything because it's going to be called in that. Yes, you just had to practice everything and read as much as you could or get as much information as you could on the theory side of things. But again, it wasn't put it in a nice little package like we have now with the ITF syllabus and the manual that's there, you know.
Yeah, and on top of that, we can find out how the examiners are scoring things as well. So it's really
Yeah,
transparent in that sense, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. And there wasn't internet either, you know.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
People are saying
you
like,
couldn't Google stuff.
forget the internet, we didn't even have a phone, never mind the
Yeah,
internet. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. But that's cool. So was there many at that test for you, or was it how many people
Oh
tested that
yeah,
day?
there was a lot. There was a test once a year. I can't remember how many was there, but there was quite a lot. Yeah, yeah,
And, and so
yeah.
that was the journey from Ennis up and then bus
And then
down.
the journey back down. Yeah, and we didn't get our results on the day either.
Right.
You know, you had to wait. I think that was in August, 93, and we had to wait till I think into September to wait a few weeks before we got our results. Yeah, so you didn't know.
And how did that
Yeah,
happen? Did you just get a letter in the
phone call,
post, a phone call? Yeah,
phone
all
call.
good. See you later.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
yeah, phone call.
No way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so then it was out with the sewing machine to put the stripes on, or
That
was it?
is exactly it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I thought at that time that you could put the stripes down the suit, down the legs, and
Yeah.
down the arms. Yeah, yeah. I didn't realize you had to wait another few years before you could do that.
Amazing.
Yeah,
It's a cool story. I mean, in many ways, I kind of like those sort of unstructured exams, right, where you don't know what's coming, and
yeah,
and in many ways, I absolutely hate them because you don't know what's coming, right? I mean, you can
yeah.
kind
There's
of,
just pluses and minuses for both, isn't there?
yeah. I
You
mean,
know.
you can kind of prepare. I mean, you can kind of. I know when you do the sort of modern black belt test, you know, like you say, it's very structured, and you know where your strengths and your weaknesses are, and what you need to double down on, and where you're going to pick up marks, and hopefully, you know, where you can limit the amount of marks you lose. And I mean, you'd know better than anyone sitting on the
Yeah,
examiners panels now. I mean, it's a it's a
yeah.
different time. Like, I mean, so tell me about so you went to first degree and a second degree and third. Tell us about your journey all the way up because you're six
Yeah,
now, so there's a few gradings
few
in between
gradings in,
there.
in between. Yeah. So that was my first degree in 93. I think I went to college then. So I was 16 when I got that, and then went to college in London after doing the Leaving Cert. But I trained over there then in Grandmaster and Ardizzi's Club. It was actually across the road from where I was living. Yeah, so that was good. And I was supposed to do my second degree there, but I came home and did it again with the AITA under Master what's his name? God's off Ken Wheatley. Yeah, and the panel that was there at that time. And then my third degree, I did that again with the AITA with Master Wheatley.
Yeah.
And fourth, we did in Belgium, where I became friends with Mr. McMullen.
And the
Yeah,
legendary partnership started there, didn't it?
yeah, it started there. We were actually the first two. We did the prelim in Ennis for the fourth degree,
Mm.
and we were the first two to kind of pilot the scoring system now for the black belt gradings when it was all done on paper. Yeah, so it was just sheets and sheets of paper out with all the stuff in it to write in the scores. So that was, yeah. So we did our fourth degree then in Belgium. And Master Barry was actually grading for his sixth over there for that.
Right.
Yeah. And then we did our fifth degree in Cork. Yeah, in Cork. And then our sixth at the IUC in Dublin in 4 years ago. Yeah, in 2016.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you've had a variety of examiners. Do you have a favorite test? Do you have a one that you remember the best going? That was a great test. I really enjoyed that one, or one that stood out to you?
I think Belgium was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Belgium. Yeah, we did it. It was hard. It was hard because we did it at the end of the IIC, so we had trained all day Friday, all day Saturday. So you know what you're like after them. Like we were stiff. There was a lot of dom soreness, and yeah, but it was a good grading. It was our first grading with the grandmasters and that, you know. So yeah.
It's weird because there's a lot of people in Ireland that are gonna grow up now through the grades, and they're not gonna have that experience at 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 in the future. You know, I don't know how that
Yeah.
works. I mean, like, but it's kind of cool, and it's kind of cool to be part of that group that have had to travel and have had to have the likes of Grandmaster, or Morano or Boss or whoever kind of put you through your
Yeah.
paces. Whereas, like I said, someone like me, for example, I mean, going to 5, I can definitely be tested next now in however many years
Yeah.
in this country by the panel that I know exists and the people I know, and
Yeah.
it's you kind of know what's coming in many ways, and you kind of, whereas it's different. I wonder, again, this is my thing about it. It's good
the
and bad,
unknown,
right?
isn't it? Yeah. Like I say, there's pluses and minuses for both, but it is nice having to travel to grade.
Yeah, there's something kind of cool about it, right?
It is nice.
You go off to war and come back with your trophy, and
yeah, it's nice.
I mean, when you're going through your grades, were you competitive at all through this period, or was that on your radar at that stage?
No, it wouldn't have been. So I would have been competitive up to probably maybe 16 or that way.
Yeah.
And then after that, not really. No.
But the club is kind of competitive anyway, right? You see that coming through, like you.
Yeah.
That's that. I don't think that happens by accident, right? There must be some kind of effort, or at least attempt to kind of make the club go. And
like we'd encourage people to compete if they're if they're interested in it. Like, of course, with the younger ones, we encourage them because it's good development for them to do the competitions and that. It's good character building and confidence building. But then as they get older, we'd say the likes of Ada now, who would like to go out on the national team, like anyone that is interested in doing stuff like that, like we'll help them as much as we can and kind of guide them towards what they would need to do, or who they need to, I suppose, get what information or help and training that they need to get it from to kind of try and get a place on the team or whatever they're looking for. We're lucky here in Clare, like there's so many different clubs down here. We've access to, like, two of the coaches that are on the national team, and we all get on really well, and they're can be very helpful. We're just very lucky down here.
And it's good. I mean, I see that across the association. The clubs are quite accommodating, to people, and they'll want to build people and help people if that's what's asked. Do you know what I mean? And I've never seen an instructor or a group of instructors go, do you know what? No, you're not allowed in here. Get out of here. This is secret stuff that you can't know. Like, that's not, I don't see that culture here,
Yeah, everybody's quite keen to help everyone else, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole rising tide lifts all boats sort of philosophy,
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, talk to me then about, I mean, you're now 6th-degree black belt. Are you the highest ranked female black belt in the ITF? I think you are.
Yeah.
That's a kind of cool badge to have, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose it is. Like, when you're kind of living it, you don't take any notice because it just is what it is.
Yeah. I mean,
but I suppose if I, like, looking back at being a colour belt, and like you'd ever only see yourself getting to 1st degree, and then next thing you're here is a 6th degree, and it's like if you take yourself out of it and look in, I suppose it is a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, does that ever come and play on your mind? Do you ever feel like there's a responsibility there to sort of role model that for sort of younger female athletes coming through, or?
I would feel like it should be a role model, and like when I do stuff, I try and do the best I can do at it. Whether it be umpiring or whatever I'm doing, and always kind of, I suppose, have the right etiquette and stuff, so that you are promoting, I suppose, things to be right. Yeah.
I mean, coming up, I mean, it's martial arts, Taekwondo. It's traditionally that kind of sort of male-dominated world, right? I mean, did you find that as you went up higher and higher that this was something that really you had to kind of either tiptoe around or get used to, or was there kind of compromises that had to be made there because of this, or was?
No, I suppose, like I was saying, when I started, it was all men, so I was kind of used to that anyway. But what I find now with the IIC, so you go to an IIC, and everybody's training together, and there's a really good mix of male and female. Now being a 6th degree, we're kind of generally up at the second line. There's a lot less females up around there, and then as they break off, where you're doing your separate training, like once you go kind of from 4th degree up, 5th degree up, 6th degree up, like you're really looking at small numbers of females compared to males in that. All right, I don't take too much notice to it, like it doesn't bother me. It's just you just notice that there's less women, you know.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's possibly to do with having families, maybe. I don't know, you know. I suppose whenever you have your kids, and it's not that easy to maybe get out and keep training or keep teaching or doing whatever you do. Like I'm lucky, like Ada was coming to classes all the time. Like it's not that I suppose when she was smaller she wouldn't have been, but once she kind of hit 4 or 5, she was coming to our classes with us. So it was easy to be going to them. And then as she got older, she was coming to the evening classes. So I was never really kind of having to leave her at home. Our family was there, Dad was there, my niece is there. So from that kind of sense, it was easier for me to keep going. Maybe for people that don't have that kind of structure where it's quite family orientated, it's probably harder to get out and leave your family behind you a lot, you know?
Yeah.
Possibly.
I think it definitely has to help having a family that's involved in the game, that and bringing people along. Taking away those boundaries, like you say, or those blockers, you know.
Because it wouldn't be easy, like, to go to work, you know, come back from work and then head out the door again, like an hour later, and be gone for the evening.
Yeah, and I mean, all this time, you know, you like you said, you went to college, you studied to be a physiotherapist, and you know, you're doing all of that as well as doing your training, and you know, and life, right? I mean, that's kind of a real testament to the effort and the graft. Do you think the attitude to women in martial arts is changing at all, or?
It kind of seems to be, doesn't it? The ITF they have a women's committee now, and they're kind of trying to get women on doing stuff, and that's good, I suppose. And trying to have women on committees and doing stuff is good. I would just hope that the people that are on it, and I'm sure that the women are good, but just that it's the right person for the right job, as opposed to kind of a token have a woman on a committee because we need to have equality, do you know?
Right, yeah, you'd rather it be on merit rather than on.
Yeah, just sex.
What do you think then? I mean, because you're also involved with the national team as well, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, tell us a bit about your involvement there and how you ended up doing that, or what it is there.
Yeah. Ada got selected for the team, so we were going to the squad sessions. And just by virtue of being a physiotherapist, people were coming up asking me about their injuries and asking me to do stuff. So it just kind of morphed into that. I brought the plinth. I kind of talked to Mr. Ryan and to see, should I kind of do something like that, like, because I was kind of treating people on the floor, you know, so that's kind of how that evolved, that I was there anyway, you know, with Ada. So yeah. And for me, I'd rather be doing something than sitting down waiting, you know. So yeah, so it was nice to be involved and to be able to help people.
Especially when you have specific knowledge of the game being played. It's not like, you know, you're traveling to a hockey tournament and you don't know. I don't know if you know anything about hockey, but I wouldn't, for example. Like, you know, and it's like, well, I can't help anyway. You know, at least here you can sort of see the game. You don't mind sort of being
it is. Yeah. And when people complain about different stuff, you can kind of figure it out, like, depending, you know, they might have a pain on one side, that's the side they kick at, so they're doing certain things that are kind of bringing on that. Yeah. So,
and like, I mean, from training your own time, from your, you know, experience as a physiotherapist, and now your experience at kind of high performance physiotherapist, right? Like, what are you seeing Taekwondo athletes coming out with as sort of, what's the sort of common problems? What are the niggles? What are the sort of things you're treating all the time and seeing? You know, I'm really curious to get this perspective.
Yeah. I suppose one of the most common things would be calves. The calves, because they're bouncing all the time, and probably not stretching the calves as much as people should do. Especially, so it's not too bad at the earlier in the campaign, but as the campaign moves on and training intensifies, and that the calves get tight. So that kind of stuff. Or I find, again, with that, you're kind of looking at footwear then, because it's not too bad earlier in the campaign, but as it moves on and people are wearing sliders, if it's the kind of summer ones, and then their legs are working more to keep those on. So it's just the knowledge around kind of, when you're on your rest days, you need to give your legs a rest, and that means your footwear makes a big difference to that as well. So trying to give people that knowledge. Outside of helping them with the stretches and the foam rolling and stuff.
It's interesting when you never think, oh, my shoes are my undoing here.
Yeah, and they do make a big difference, or even wearing compression wear just to help with your recovery after the sessions, every little bit kind of helps, especially at that level, because it's such a high level, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like those athletes are really they're tuned so that any kind of small change will make a big impact, right?
Yeah,
I am less performant and can suffer a greater variability, I suppose, but
okay. You can wear the sliders.
I can suffer it just a slight bit more. My fine tune machine won't derail as quickly, but it's interesting. I mean, because we see it across not just at some point everyone gets injured in Taekwondo, right? I don't think and I'm just curious. I mean, what is it about this game that you think finds people picking up knocks? And is it bad training habits? Is it bad knowledge? Is it like how do we kind of help people who might be high performance athletes, but they might be kind of sort of your kind of average athlete or your average trainer who comes and they do their 2 classes a week or whatever, and they might be not 7 years old and made of Play-Doh. They might be 37 years old and sort of need a bit more time. Where's your thoughts lie on this one?
We do a lot of kind of injury prevention exercises in our classes, to help with that.
What would that entail? So for people who are having listened here, what would you think? What would you recommend or prescribe to people before they go training, or when they're not training at home now, for example, to keep themselves?
Yeah, kind of mobility work. Yeah, so doing stretches, thoracic mobility, the rotation work, because if your thoracic spine is stiff, it's going to be hard to do the blocks because your shoulders will be stiff, everything will be slightly off. So trying to keep that mobile. And then just the stretching. So there's kind of evidence around now doing eccentric stretching, so where you're not actually pushing the muscle on a length completely, but where you're doing, like the Nordic hams, those exercises. Where so you're say on a kneeling up high and you start to tip yourself forward, so it's your hamstrings that are holding you. You need someone holding your legs, but doing that where you're tipping forward, and then before like your hamstrings give out, you just sit down onto your calves and then kneel back up again. So that helps. So there's evidence there to show that doing that kind of exercise will give you lengthened hamstrings without having to push your hamstrings like with a static stretch, if that makes sense. And it works quite well. So we do a lot of that in the club, and we do it for the hip flexors, and that kind of works quite well. And then a lot of kind of jumping and landing and trying to keep everything aligned so that the knees aren't kind of going in or out when you're doing that, so that people, when they're kind of moving around sparring, will have a better, I suppose, awareness of their body position and stuff like that, to help ideally prevent injuries and stuff. So we be kind of do a good bit of that. So for people at home, I suppose you'd be looking at technique, watching your technique when you're doing your squats, when you're doing your lunges. Every time you do something, you're kind of reinforcing that pathway in your brain. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you do it right. You don't fast doesn't necessarily mean better. So with the squats and the lunges or whatever sit to stands or what you're doing, you need to make sure that your knees point in the same direction as your toes. And that then will fall into your walking stances, your L stances, your sitting stances, just that kind of stuff. Simple stuff, like when you kind of think about it, you go, it's not that hard to do, but you actually need to kind of think about it when you're doing it to get it right.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of maybe a little bit easier for adults to kind of self-assess themselves that way when they're walking or squatting or whatever. But
what we do in the club with that sort of stuff is we kind of get people to look at each other, pair them up. Obviously not with the smallies, but like from kind of 9, 10 up, kids are pretty good at like giving you good feedback as to whether your like knees are dipping in or out, or whatever technique or whatever we're doing. They're good to give feedback, to other people, and that in itself then helps them to correct themselves, because they can kind of see someone else and see how to help them fix it.
Yeah, I mean, like kids love being in charge, right? And they love being the boss.
Yeah.
So I think giving them authority is a no-brainer sometimes, if not a
Yeah,
double-edged
yeah,
sword. But yeah, and I mean,
yeah. So
so that's kind of cool. I mean, do you think that your professional experience has helped you in your taekwondo experience, and vice versa? Do you think do you get much crossover there that's really sort of made your training better or helped you stay kind of strong and fit throughout? Whereas, I mean, I'm sure coming up through the grades, you've seen other people that might have dropped off through various different injuries or whatever. And I mean, is that something you've noticed? Is that something that you think?
that having kind of the taekwondo and the physio going together was a help. Yeah, I mean, definitely, I suppose from a teaching point of view, and kind of knowing why you're doing certain exercises and what the knock-on effect of doing one thing would have with another, and being able to explain things to people
Mm,
as to why you're actually doing this exercise is, I think, it's a big help, and then with the kids, like, because from a physio point of view, like I do adults and pediatrics.
mm,
So, with the kids classes, I suppose having that pediatric experience of kids development and stuff is a big help as well. Yeah, so they do go well together, and working then, like, and again, I suppose it's helped more with the pediatric exercises that I'd be doing. So we'd have, like, I'd see kids with developmental delay and motor coordination problems, DCD, that sort of stuff. I'd say the older kids, see the babies as well. But the older kids, like, I'd bring a lot of the Taekwondo games into it. I'd bring the pads to
mm.
work with me. I'd bring the hula hoops to work. So there is a good crossover there. Yeah, yeah. It has benefited me. It's like both sides. Yeah, definitely. Both. Yeah.
So what about then, like, I mean, your own goals for your own training going forward? I mean, you've come to 6 degree black belt. You are, I think we're maybe one of the only international teams with a full-time physio. Like, where do you see
I think
yourself
some of
going?
the others have
Oh,
some.
oh really?
Um,
Sure.
with this, yeah, I think Romania had one. You'd see them going around like with their physio tops on.
That's right. So
Um, where, yeah,
you have a little trail, a
yeah.
club there, do you?
They they where do I see myself going? Taekwondo wise,
I
I
mean,
suppose, like, in a couple of years, hopefully go for 7 degrees. So we kind of training away for that at the minute anyway, just kind of keeping going. With the national team, like, unfortunately the championships were cancelled
yeah.
or postponed this time. Which was awful really for the competitors. It was so close to the championships, and
Mm,
they had so much work put into it, and they were looking really good, and then there was a lot of new newbies on the squad as well. Like, it was
yeah, yeah.
unfortunate for them not to get their go. But I suppose the national team will be coming back again, so just helping out with that will be something that I'll be doing. And then club wise, I suppose we have the two clubs here in Clare now. Like, we've Ennis and then Bearfield, so
And
we'll
are
be
you
kept
teaching,
going.
sorry, are you teaching in both of those clubs all the time, or what? How do you?
Yeah. So the way it is, Bearfield is Tuesdays and Friday evenings,
Hmm.
and Ennis is Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday morning, and then Saturday evenings for people getting ready for the down gradings. So the only evening I wouldn't be in Ennis would be Tuesday, because obviously we're in Bearfield. But how we kind of break it up is the two girls, like Ada and Darren, help out in Bearfield as well. So they come and help me, and then Mr. Kinsella will be in Ennis. They probably train there from 7 to 8, or helping teaching from 7 to 8 now, and then come out to us after 8 o'clock in Bearfield and help finish up out there. So yeah, it's good though. It's good to have the two clubs, and people have the option. If they miss training in one place, they can make it up in another if they want.
Yeah,
But it's
this
all
it's
new. Like, Bearfield is quite new. We started up there in November.
yeah, it's different. I know when we started Cabinteely, kind of last May we sort of started trialing it and sort of ran them till June to sort of say, right, let's have a go. It is weird kicking off a venue when you have one that's kind of established and you go back to sort of classes of 2 and 3 and suddenly all your
Fairfield was Mr. Coughlin's club, so
okay. So you kind of had a pool
so
of
it
people
was
there
established.
Already. Right.
So they hadn't trained for a few months. That's the only thing. So not everybody would have come back, but there was enough came back. So that club is there. I think it's 20 years.
Yeah,
Fairfield
I was thinking that it's not.
there.
That sounds like the penny is kind of pieces have come together in my head now. Now I'm with you. It's a commitment though, isn't it? I mean, you're working full time as well, and it's how do you juggle that with life, right? I mean, because a full-time job, full-time instructor, doing your own training, family to sort of look after as well in our spare time, I suppose. Like, how do you ever struggle with the balance?
Kind of comes. I suppose I had to kind of juggle things around a little bit once I took over Bearfield. With the work thing and the kind of teaching thing, so I had to kind of stop doing a couple of things that I was doing. I was teaching other classes on a Monday and Wednesday evening, antenatal classes. So I kind of stopped them. So I have those 2 evenings now a week, which I didn't have before. Before I used to only have a Friday evening. So it's actually, I have a bit more time now than what I would have had before taking over Bearfield. And again, Ada is coming out with me and my niece is coming out. So
you're not,
it's nice time, like, and the kids are lovely that are in both places. And the adults, there's more kids in Bearfield, there's no adults. And then in Ennis, it's kind of a mixture of kids and adults. So it's not like, you're doing something so long, it's not something you really think about too much. It's not a hardship. To go and do it. It's just part of what you do, isn't it?
We wouldn't be doing it if we didn't enjoy it. It's not like this tax that has to be paid or something like that. But
and I was lucky with work as well. I was able to kind of change my hours around a little bit at work, so I could go in a bit earlier, finish a little bit earlier, so I wasn't kind of rushing from one place to the other.
That's important. I know. I mean, like I've often been kind of leaving the office in town, kind of hoping the train isn't late, or else classes will be late and stuff like that. But it doesn't always. I've been quite fortunate, and again, I have a bit of flexibility at my own work. So, but it's interesting what you said there, that there was more kids in Bearfield than there is in Ennis. I mean, did you always run a? Sorry, did you always run an adult unit?
We didn't. We would have years ago. We would have, and then it was all kids really that we were getting in Ennis. Not that we weren't looking for the adults, but they just didn't come. But for the last few years now, we have more adults starting, like parents of kids that are doing it. Have started training, Whereas in Bearfield, there is no adults. It's just, I suppose the oldest there is probably 16, 17.
Okay.
Down to maybe 11. Yeah,
it's a weird one to juggle, right? That, because I know any of this sort of, we have had a good cohort of adults in the past, but I find that my adult senior class, teenagers, adults class kind of is being populated by people who are now just getting older from this class below it, rather than a lot of new adults coming to start. I mean, you do get a few, and it's great. We're happy to see them and come in, but you have different journeys to manage there, right? You have people who are young and can kick on and go on to be highly competitive if they want, and then you have people that are coming back to sport or are not interested in being driven on that path to be an athlete, right? They just want to train and hard or whatever, but they don't necessarily need to be the next world champion, which is it's trying to match that in one class can be a nice challenge.
I suppose we're lucky because there's so many of us there in Ennis. We can kind of divide up the class, so when it comes to, let's say, the tournament time, like we have an instructor that can go with people who want to be going to the tournament, and then someone else can be with people who are getting ready for a grading, and someone else can be with the rest of the class that are just kind of doing developmental stuff for that way. We're lucky, and the hall is big enough.
Yeah, I never actually asked you when did Ennis start as a club? Like when did you actually kick that off? I mean, after because you were training. Like I mean, I forgot to ask you earlier on. You were training with Master
Yeah.
Ford for a long time, and then decided. I mean, when did you?
That was Ennis. Yeah, that was Ennis.
Ah,
So Master
okay.
Ford started Ennis. Yeah. So in whatever the 18th of April '89, Ennis officially opened as a Taekwondo school. Yeah, with Master Ford, and then like Mr. Byrne was saying the other night, Master Ford went to Cork,
That's it.
and it was Kevin Soren took over Shannon, and subsequently then Mr. Byrne and Dad or Mr. Kinsella took over Ennis. Yeah, and that's how that kind of came about.
Right, right, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Sort of genesis, isn't it? That
Yeah.
there's sort of legacy there. That's cool. Um, so what was I going to ask you? There was something that I have. Just check me now. Sorry. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm asking all people this, especially high ranked black belts. I'm kind of going into this one with you. I mean,
God.
Taekwondo is as a martial art, right? Is one of those things that has been traditionally viewed in the you line up, you put the dobook on, and you stand in the lines, and you make shapes, and you do your blocking and your punching and your fundamentals, and you bow and that's Taekwondo, and that's part of it. And we're seeing a huge rise in combat sports like MMA and other sort of things. And how do you think sort of Taekwondo positions itself with the rise of that? And, because before, like I say to I've asked other people this and I've said, I mean, before when you were training, there was no internet, so you couldn't see what a Taekwondo class looked like. Whereas now you can go online and
Yeah.
everyone is putting Taekwondo classes online. So you can kind of, you can assess it, but you can also kind of criticize it as well if you don't believe in it or you don't necessarily align with that view. I mean, how do you think Taekwondo sort of positions itself to stay not relevant? Relevant's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. To stay kind of in the public eye as a martial art. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the discipline that it offers and it's just, I suppose, you're getting a lot of balance work, you're getting a lot of kind of core development, you're working both sides of the body. Like for kids, it's just brilliant, because you're getting so many different things from it. Like a lot of physios will be recommending it now for kids, especially kids with DCD and that, just because of all those aspects that are in it. That you're having to work on your balance with the kicking and the weight transfers and learning how to move your body to do all the different things that you have to do with it. And you don't need a partner for it either. It's something that you can do and you can progress. Whereas with probably the more combative sports, you do need someone, don't you? Like
Yeah. Well,
you
even
can't
when we
really
train
do them
sparring,
like
it's very
without
hard to train
without
sparring at
someone.
home now, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. But the
yeah,
rest of it you can do. You don't need someone to do it.
yeah, I like that.
Um,
I mean, that's kind of. I think you really you highlighted a lot of sort of the kind of pros of the thing that we do and why we enjoy doing it. That we have this out, that you can take at
mm,
any time. That isn't, you know, everyone has turned their home into a doja and go for the past few weeks, and you can
I
see
know,
now
yeah.
that it's great. Like so do
Yeah.
you want to answer a few rapid fire questions? Put
Oh,
you on the
I go
spot.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Cool.
not very good at answering quickly.
Be grand. What's your favorite pattern?
Sejong.
Sejong. What's the pattern you definitely don't want to get at your next test?
Juche.
Che, there you go. You know what you'll be asked now 'cause it's on record. So, I mean, supposing somebody put three boards in front of you and said you have to break all of them, what's your go-to technique?
Step psychic.
Step in sidekick, nice. Can you tell me what's the standout memory you have from Taekwondo?
Um, I suppose there'd be a few like us. Ada becoming European champion would have to be one of them. Yeah, and to be there with her when that happened. Yeah, that was good. And then again, when she got her black belt, we 3 generations of black belts in the family. Which was yeah, that was really good as well. Like there's just so many, like 31 years of Taekwondo. It's hard to
To pinpoint one, I
it's
know,
hard
yeah.
it's hard to kind of pick.
It's
Yeah,
just questions for
yeah.
fun. Have you got what's the funniest thing you can recall at this time that we can talk about publicly?
Oh God, I think probably the funniest thing would be me trying to do the special technique where you're doing the flying psychic and just just making a complete disaster of it. Yeah, yeah, my legs actually forgetting to jump. Like, yeah,
Very
that's
good.
probably the yeah.
And if you
Very bad.
what was the last one I was going to say to you? If you're if in a sparring match, what's your go-to shot?
The sparring,
Mm.
turn and kick.
Dalio, nice. Everyone loves a
Yeah.
Dalio. Awesome, Miss Kinsella. You have shared a wealth of information with us about your journey, and I've been very, very happy to sit and share this evening with you talking Taekwondo.
Thank you,
If
Mr. O'Connor. Yeah.
if you want to plug the club now, I mean, supposing people are down in Ennis and they want to go train, they go, do you know what? That's for me. How can people find
Yeah.
you, or how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, on Facebook we're Ennis Taekwondo School. And then for Bearfield Taekwondo School. Yeah, they're probably the easiest ways to get in touch with through the Facebook.
Cool. So Facebook is the point of contact. Deadly. I mean, like I said, it's been a really good talk. It's been really, it's I always have good times chatting with you, and I look forward to being on the mats again with you and seeing you up in Dublin, or maybe we'll come down to you for a change.
That'd be great. Whenever that will be. Yeah.
Well, I have good memories now.
And this
is a good hunting ground for me. So
Well, yeah, especially if you're getting your fourth there.
Yeah, I got my third there as well, which is cool. So I'll definitely be back hopefully. Well, let's just rest on our haunches for a moment, and then we can take stock. But yeah, look, it's been a really, really interesting conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time out of the evening to chat with me. And look, I hope you stay safe. Say hi to the family for me, and look after yourself.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Miss.
Bye.
Take care. So, bye.
Bye.